So the theme for today is remembrance and the importance of remembering. So over the last few weeks, actually, Reverend Cheryl, while she's been preaching, has been talking about, some of the things that she's been learning in class and the brain science and how important it is to continue to share our stories, because it's through the sharing of the stories that we own them, we ingest them. So if you think about some of the scripture readings where in Jeremiah, God says, I will put my words upon your heart. Well, how do those words get on our heart? It is through that act, the intentional act of remembering, of sharing the stories. And through the sharing of the stories, they become ingrained. They become part of who we are and what we do and how we live. So today, particularly, and then on Wednesday, we are remembering for a particular reason, right? We are remembering, like I see that almost everybody is wearing a poppy. And why do we wear a poppy? It is to remember. It's to remember the acts of the past, and the value, the reason to do that remembering is so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. The scriptures we had this morning, the psalm and that passage from Deuteronomy, the people of Israel were constantly told to remember their history, to remember the days of slavery, to remember God lifting them out of slavery and bringing them out of the land of Egypt and into the promised land. The people of Israel, and they were told, instructed, commanded even, to tell those stories to their children and to their children's children and their children's children's children, so that they would never forget who they are, where they come from, where they've been, and the promise that they hold. We are coming to a time when there will not be a single veteran alive who has fought. Well, there's certainly none from World War I. And World War II, we're getting close to not having that lived memory. And so it becomes even more important, it becomes incumbent upon us to share the stories and to remember, because we cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. We cannot. But in remembering, it's not simply about our memory carrying that story forward. It is maintaining or bringing back into our community the members who are no longer here. So we are remembering people. They were here, they are gone. We bring them back into our collective community. The people of Israel, in the passage that Reverend Cheryl read from Deuteronomy, they were well past. They were the days of slavery, the days of the journey through the desert, the days of entry into the promised land. They were well past. They were gone. Moses and Aaron and Miriam they were all gone. But through the constant telling of that story, the prophets and the leaders and the kings they are all brought back into the community every time the story is retold. And why is that important? When Linda and Nancy sang the words from Flanders Fields, there's a line, and every time I hear the line, it strikes a chord in my heart. And the line is, take up your quarrel with the foe. And now people hear that and they go, okay, so who's the foe? Who's the enemy, right? Let's get political for 1 minute. The conversations over the last few days on the news have been about, the other side being the enemy. If you heard now President-elect Joe Biden last night talked about, people are not the enemy, right? If you're a Democrat, Republicans are not your enemy. If you're a liberal, conservatives are not your enemy. We are all people working towards what we hope is the common good. Even in the world wars, it is not the people who are the enemy, right? A 21-year-old person killing another 21-year-old person, there's something dreadfully horrible about that, and I don't care what side of the equation you were sitting on. The enemy is the idea of fascism, the idea of hatred, the idea that somehow I am better than you, or I deserve more than you. That's the enemy. When we talk about taking up the quarrel with the foe is homelessness and poverty and sexism and racism. Those are the foes. That's the enemy. On Remembrance Day, we don't gather to remember war. We gather to remember the causes of war and the cost of war. And not because we want to glorify it, but because we don't want to go back there. I remember sitting in Legions and talking to people who the last thing a veteran wanted to do was talk about the war. Because it is not a place they want to go back to. It's not a place we want to go back to. The importance of remembrance. The importance of remembrance is because when we remember, we bring those who are no longer here back into our community, and we remember the ideals that they strove for, that they lived for, and sadly, too many died for. On this Remembrance Day, we remember not only those who died in wars past, but we remember that there are still people, men and women, some of whom are related to you, some of whom are related to me, who continue to have to put their lives in danger in the struggle to promote and protect ideals and visions that are ours as well. And so as we remember, we bring all of them into this space right now. And we hold before us the promise of a gospel that says that we will one day live in peace. We will one day have a world, and I don't mean heaven. We will have a world where justice reigns. We will have a world where all are treated with kindness and compassion. And that is the world that is promised. And in some way, on this day, we remember. We bring that world into our reality now with the hope that it becomes everyone's reality in the days to come. Thanks be to God.